Well, hello there, and welcome into another episode of the Cannabis Man Podcast. Thank you so much for clicking on the show. I am your host, Don Kleppen. And if it's your first time here, this is a show where we're trying to take a journalistic look at all things cannabis. I'm a broadcaster in Chicago. You can hear me do news and traffic on the radio at various stations and times throughout the week. And I'm a personal cannabis user of about 18 or 19 years at this point. And I just wanted to start having conversations and kind of doing my own part to answer some of the questions that people have about cannabis, as well as talk with experts in the space, whether those be researchers, entrepreneurs, government leaders, journalists, and bring that insight to you here on this podcast. If you would be so kind, please go ahead and leave a rating or review for the podcast, whichever platform you're using to listen to the show. Just click that rating or review button. If you're listening on YouTube, click the like, and be sure to become a subscriber. You can do that by scrolling down and clicking the support the show link. And follow the show on social media at C-Man Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and the Cannabis Man Podcast Facebook page. This week, I will be giving you an update into how things have been going for me ever since the end of my dry January. I've continued exploring some new products that I'll tell you about. I have some news stories I thought were worth bringing to your attention, and of course, an expert interview. A dispensary group in Illinois is expanding their footprint in the Chicago area. They have a great story, a lot of great products, and some discounts, and you'll hear all about those later in the show. So let's get into this episode of the Cannabis Man Podcast.
This is Tommy Chong, and you're listening to the Cannabis Broadcast.
Yeah, alrighty. Now we're into the show properly. Thank you so much for all the feedback and all the engagement with the show. I really love that you're listening to it, and I really love all the back and forth that I've gotten from listeners just talking about the guests they've enjoyed, some of the products that they've tried after hearing about them on the show. And by all means, if you have any suggestions, any kind of feedback, any questions, or any products or suggestions that you'd like to make, feel free to hit up the show on social media at C-Man Podcast, or you can send an email to host@cannabismanpodcast.com. If you've been listening at all recently, you know that I am still coming back from my dry January, my modified tolerance break for 31 days. And my cannabis tolerance is not yet at the level that it was before I took the break. So that being said, I haven't been using as many products or as much cannabis as I was before taking the break, still kind of working my way back up to that. And the same goes for alcohol and caffeine and sugars and meat as well. All the things that I took a break from during January, all of those still, to me, a little is going a long way. On that note, I'm recording this a little later in the afternoon, and as such, I'm drinking some tea-chino, which is kind of a coffee substitute that I was leaning on pretty heavily during my dry month without caffeine. This is a dandelion caramel nut flavor. Still enjoy the tea-chino. You know, I have been having coffee in the morning, kind of getting back into my caffeine kick. I love combining caffeine and cannabis whenever I have the opportunity to. And so I've been really enjoying getting back on the coffee kick, but I do love tea-chino, and even when I'm not taking a break from caffeine, it is kind of a nice afternoon substitute for another cup of coffee or for a different cup of tea, like green tea or peppermint, that I'll have kind of later in the afternoon. So it's just been interesting for me. Tea-chino definitely has its place in my life. It came into my life as this coffee substitute, but even now when I'm back on coffee, I'm still totally enjoying the tea-chino. And I've also been enjoying some pre-rolls from Verano. Now, I have brought up some Verano products on the show before, and I have to say I was not impressed with them that I tried thus far. I talked about some shake that I got from Verano. I've talked about some other flower and pre-rolls that I've tried from them. It just never really, the quality of the products I tried from them never really stood out in a good capacity. In fact, fact, that shake I remember reviewing pretty negatively. I recall it being very dry and kind of leaving me with a headache. But I am happy to inform you that these pre-rolls that I got are their Essence brand of J's, which is advertised as a more high-quality line of cannabis products from Verano Essence. And these pre-rolls that I got are the strain Sweet Apple Crumble Pie. And I gotta say, compared to the Verano products that I've sampled in the past, this was a very refreshing improvement. Sweet Apple Crumble Pie is listed as an uplifting cultivar growing dense and sticky with fruity sweet notes and earthy undertones that lend to cerebral and euphoric effects. Its lineage is sour apple and triple kush. It's categorized as an indica, and the listed effects include euphoric, uplifting, with flavors that include sweet, fruity, and earthy. Now, as I said, my tolerance is still low enough where I haven't really been smoking so much in the morning or throughout the day. I've been keeping my cannabis use to the evenings mostly. And so this indica Sweet Apple Crumble Pie has kind of leaned into that for me. I do prefer sativas on the regular, but again, as I've talked about on the show before, I think that indica sativa hybrid is a vast oversimplification to try and categorize how many hundreds of compounds and terpenes that we know about across the world of cannabis. But seeing as these are the modes that we use to categorize these things, for right now, I will stick to it and say that even though I do tend to lean towards sativas myself, this indica, I still feel like indicas have their place, and this one, having it at the end of my day, after dinner, after the work day, very much puts the mind at ease, gives you some relief, gets you set up for that bedtime. It's blissful, doesn't really give too many of the munchies that I've noticed, but it does relax you. It does kind of ease the anxiety and the sharpness that can be left over from the day. Definitely something that I enjoy, and I would go back again for more. I think this Sweet Apple Crumble Pie, these pre-rolls from Verano's Essence line, is definitely worth it. The price point I thought was pretty good too for these Essence products. This pack of 5 joints, and these aren't shorties either. These were easily, I would say, half a gram per, and they were about $25, and I got them from the Wrigleyville Sunnyside, where you know that I often do my shopping. Another strain from Verano's Essence flower that I tried was the Burmese Kush pre-rolls. The lineage here comes from Burmese and SFV OG Kush. The description I'm getting from iHeartJane.com. The beautiful buds of Burmese Kush are a show-off. Rich, deep green hues and a thick dusting of trichomes bring forth a scent of pine and flavors of honey and sage. This hybrid strain, which is how it's categorized, offers a calming effect leading to a mellow outlook, guiding you to pleasant feelings of hunger and euphoria. I definitely did notice munchies more with the Burmese Kush, and I have to say I did not find as much enjoyment from these as I did the Sweet Apple Crumble Pie. The Burmese Kush was decent. Listed effects are mellow, calming, euphoric. I did get mellow and calming, but these flavors they list, pine, spice, turpentine is actually something they list here, and I'll say that's kind of the flavor that I got. Pine and spice didn't really come through for me, but a little bit of the turpentine is really what came through, and I noticed that this was also very dry. Just like the shake that I talked about from Verano in the past, I was not impressed with the smell and with the dryness of this Burmese Kush. Felt it more in the head than the body, and as I said, there was a little bit of munchies with these, but probably not a product I'm going to go back to personally. Did like the Sweet Apple Crumble Pie, not a big fan of the Burmese Kush from Verano Essence there. Now let's roll right into the News Joint wrap, brought to you by IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Think of it as the joint you can hit for all your Illinois cannabis news and reviews. These are news headlines and events related to cannabis in or around Illinois. And one story I thought was worth your attention: Illinois Representative Vela introduces cannabis DUI bill. As Jason Brown of IllinoisNewsJoint.com notes here, this comes on the heels of the Illinois Supreme Court recently hearing oral arguments about aroma as lone probable cause for a vehicle search, that aroma being related to marijuana. Illinois Representative Dave Vela introduced on the 7th of February House Bill 4890, which would amend the vehicle code to include language that eventually would allow law enforcement to use a cannabis breathalyzer during a sobriety test. HB 4890 would add the word breath to the law and state driving while under the influence of alcohol, other drug or drugs, intoxicating compound or compounds, or any combination thereof, the person has, within 2 hours of driving or being in actual physical control of a vehicle, a THC concentration in the person's breath, blood, or other bodily substance other than urine. Now, the article goes on to give some more details about the bill that was introduced, but this is inevitable to me, and honestly, I find it to be a good development. You may remember I brought up on a recent episode there is a new ratio, a new possibility to measure current inebriation by THC. This was out of the University of Colorado study, I believe, and they found another way of measuring with 98% certainty through a breathalyzer. Really, they measured these metabolites and a ratio between two of them and basically are able to suss out if you've consumed or not within the last 30 minutes. Again, with 98% certainty. And therefore, they have a better idea of whether you're actually under the influence of that much more accurately than THC blood tests currently give us a view of. And that development, this ability to measure more accurately current state, whether it's altered or not, or whether, you ingested THC 30 minutes ago versus any time in the last 3 weeks. With that is going to come the potential for more regulation, but in this case, that's a good thing. We want law enforcement to be using devices that give them a more accurate reading instead of just taking basic THC blood tests like they do now. And if you're a regular user, you can test positive for that up to 11 weeks after your last time using cannabis, which is almost 3 months. So obviously we've needed improvement in that regard. And when that improvement comes, as it seems to be on the way right now, that's going to lead to better regulation for all of us. Another story here from IllinoisNewsJoint.com, HB 5284 to eliminate healthcare facility restrictions on medical cannabis use. If the bill becomes law, Illinois registered qualifying medical cannabis patients would gain more rights within a healthcare facility. This article came out February 9th. Jason Brown notes that the day before, Illinois Rep. Kevin John O'Lickle introduced the bill that would eliminate healthcare facility restrictions on medical cannabis use by registered qualifying patients. The amendments to the Compassionate Use of Medical Cannabis Program Act would look like this. Provision 1, no healthcare facility shall prohibit the use of medical cannabis by a registered qualifying patient within a healthcare facility unless the patient is receiving emergency services and care that is deemed medically necessary by the patient's healthcare provider. No healthcare facility shall unreasonably restrict the manner in which the registered qualifying patient stores and uses medical cannabis. So I'm sure you can see already how beneficial this would be. Anybody in a healthcare facility in Illinois, if you're a qualifying medical patient and you're registered with your card and it's all active, you could be in a hospital, you could be in a pharmacy, you could be somewhere, and the use of your medical cannabis would not be prohibited by any of these facilities that you could be in. So this could be huge as well. I really like the way that might go. And one final story I thought you'd really like to hear about, listener. The Illinois Senate Bill 2321 would remove workplace THC drug tests. Illinois Senator Robert Peters introduced the bill on February 8th, which, among other amendments, would provide an employer may not refuse to hire an individual or discipline an employee because of results of an individual's drug test indicate the presence of THC on the part of that individual. SB 2321 amends the Right to Privacy in the Workplace Act and deletes references to a THC drug-free workplace policy. An amendment also defines lawful products, quote, as products that are legal for the employee to use under state law. SB 2321 does permit an employer to enforce a pre-employment drug testing policy, zero-tolerance drug testing policy, random drug testing policy, or drug-free workplace policy, or disciplining an employee for violating such policy, but provides that an employer may not take an adverse action against an employee solely because of a positive drug test for cannabis, unless the test results exceed the limit set forth in certain DUI provisions of the Illinois Vehicle Code. Again, kind of getting at the point where if you are severely altered, if you're in an inebriated state brought on by use of cannabis at your workplace, just like with alcohol or any other substance that can get you to that severely altered state, if you test and prove that that's where you are, there will be consequences for it. So it's certainly not carte blanche to just, show up at work completely blitzed, which none of us should be doing anyway unless you're comfortable risking the consequences of that. But I like that this adjusts the Right to Privacy in the Workplace Act and could potentially bump THC drug tests altogether from several companies. So I'll definitely keep an eye on any adjustments with that. And of course, if you're interested in any more information about those stories and reviews and events and other such topics related to cannabis around Illinois, head to IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Before we get to this week's interview, listener, I wanted to give you a little bit of an update. I mentioned last week on the episode when I was interviewing Jason Erkes of Cresco Labs, talking about their partnership between the 50/50 Group and their Good News brand of cannabis that resulted in a THC-infused buffalo wing sauce, which they sold at Sunnyside Dispensaries ahead of the Super Bowl. I was lucky enough to get to try some of that buffalo wing sauce. My wife, who is 7 months pregnant, so she made the food, but she did not partake in it, but she still was kind enough to make me about 6 wings, and she put on about 20 milligrams worth of the sauce, in terms of THC anyway. She spread that across the wings, and my goodness, did I love my experience with these. The flavor, first of all, just in terms of it being regular buffalo wing sauce, the flavor was unique and positive in many ways. What I felt from it was a fun mix of sweet and sour and spicy. It was crazy. I mean, the first thing I noticed was like the sweetness, and then it kind of drops off the way sweet and sour chicken does, like if you're eating Chinese food. The sweetness hits you first, then you're left with a little bit of like a sour aftertaste, and then the spice moves in slowly. After about 2 or 3 wings, I had to take a break because the spice meter was for real. It felt like my tongue was numb at some point, and I had to have some like milk on hand there too. But anyway, I finished the 6. They were fantastic. And by midway through the 4th quarter, and certainly through the overtime period of this Super Bowl, I was really, really feeling, especially after this dry January and my tolerance isn't where it was, I was really feeling the effects of this. I was very spacey in the head. I was barely paying attention to the game, totally glued to the couch and just enjoying my time. Severely altered, and it was great. I've still got plenty of the sauce left, and I look forward to having more of this on a special occasion or whatever. But as I mentioned last week on the episode, I just hope to continue seeing products like this. Cresco has a huge umbrella of brands, and there are so many good food makers in and around Illinois and the Chicago area, so I thought that partnership between them and the 50/50 Group to make this wing sauce was just beautiful. Now, having tried it, I want more and more of this stuff, and I just really hope that they decide to continue this partnership in the future. But in the meantime, if you get a chance to try the wing sauce from the 50/50 Group and Good News under Cresco's cannabis products brands, if you're a fan of hot wings, if you're a fan of this stuff, you really owe it to yourself to give this a try. The experience of eating was excellent enough as it was, and then the after effects of just kind of sitting there getting more and more stoned after eating those delicious wings, fantastic. I would sign up for that every Super Bowl Sunday if I could. Listener, my guest today has a very interesting story to tell, and I can't wait to get into it with him. He is working with a very unique dispensary, hopefully, a story that becomes a little more common, I think we're all hoping for as Illinois continues to abide by the commitments that it made to social equity. I've talked on the show a lot about the equity component of Illinois' cannabis market, and we all know that last year, financially was great for Illinois. Cannabis has been the state bringing in $1.6 billion in recreational sales last year. But as I've talked about on the show before, too, it's a very small group, and it's a limited group that's been really enjoying reaping the rewards of that success. A lot of the people who are in legal cannabis thus far are mainly white guys, and Governor Pritzker started this banging the drum about how important social equity was. And I totally get that lawsuits have tied up a lot of these dispensaries licenses in court. At least they did for the first 2 years or so. And only now are we finally starting to see some of these social equity business owners getting their operations up and running. And all of that is kind of a long-winded way of saying that Ivy Hall, which is one of the few social equity licenses in the market, is opened their 8th location in Logan Square. And first of all, having 8 locations in Illinois as a social equity license holder is impressive enough as it is. But to be in Logan Square, serving that market along with Humboldt Park, where I used to live, I'm really looking forward to talking with my guest today, who is the vice president of Ivy Hall, Omar Delgado. Welcome in, Omar.
Hi, Don. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
In the introduction there, I wanted to say I think that 8 locations is really exciting, as I say, especially for a social equity license holder. And I'm a huge fan of the Logan Square neighborhood. I mentioned I used to live in Humboldt Park. Those parts of the city are so vibrant, but Humboldt especially doesn't even, it hasn't had a dispensary, so Ivy Hall is the first in that sort of location. So there's a lot I want to talk with you about, but let's just start with you. How did you get into cannabis here and sort of getting into Ivy Hall?
Yeah, no, thank you. For sure. So I started in cannabis in 2018, just got recruited over, ran a dispensary in Oak Park for a few years, and then just got my legs under me there, was the general manager and the procurement buyer for that store. And then, I started to help that organization within a few different states as well, just getting a little bit of just some experience in different states, as you know, I'm sure you know very well, just like the complexities in the laws. It was just very interesting to get an understanding of that and see what different markets are doing with products, and just got a good experience there. From there, I went over to a different cannabis company, started running a few more stores for another company. And then I was recruited over to Ivy Hall in October of 2022. A few of the co-founders just explained to me what the vision was and how they anticipated having a footprint in the market. And I was excited to hear about that. And to your point earlier, the social equity component of it really resonated with me. I felt like I had a tremendous amount of experience within the retail world itself, and then within the cannabis sector, I had a fair amount of experience, seeing as though it still was fairly new and I was in it right before it even went recreational. So I felt that I could bring a lot to the table and help this group get on their feet. And it's just been a really cool ride so far.
That's awesome. As you say, I think, you mentioned how the equity component of it is really important. I've talked about it on the show before, too. The war on drugs was always a failure, and it's just every passing year, it's just kind of compounding that failure to a worse and worse degree. And that's why I think when, Governor Pritzker and others as well, other politicians, but him specifically here in Illinois, he touted the importance of walking that social equity line. The communities that were most disproportionately impacted by that war on drugs, they can't be left behind in this, new green rush. They have to be the ones to disproportionately benefit, ideally, from this, this change in legal status. So I think it's totally cool that that resonated with you for Ivy Hall. And it seems like Ivy Hall was the first Black-owned dispensary in the Logan Square neighborhood. Is that right?
So we were the first in the Bucktown neighborhood, but we were the first to launch as a social equity license in the state.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, it was great. We had a chance to meet Governor Pritzker, actually, and we got to thank him in person for the work that he's done and everybody down there down in Springfield. And he actually did an appearance at our Bucktown location a few weeks after we opened. So that was a really cool experience to have.
Yeah, I bet. And that is awesome. I mean, anytime, you got a business going and the governor comes to kind of say hello, I think that's huge for any business. And that Logan Square, Bucktown, Humboldt, as I mentioned, just that kind of, that area is always so lively. And I just think that, again, dispensaries, restaurants, breweries over there, it's always a great time. So I think it's a great location for Ivy Hall to have set up there. So let's talk a little about how it has been going. As I mentioned at the top, Illinois raked in a lot of money last year just from recreational cannabis as it stands. Is Ivy Hall medical and recreational?
So we're only recreational.
Okay. Gotcha. And so even adult rec, that 1.6 billion number was just from adult rec cannabis. So that's over $1.5 billion in state revenue from one product just from adult rec. How has that been going in Ivy Hall's, 8 locations now? What products do you guys have that people are, I would say, most excited about? What are they buying the most of? And then we can kind of move into Illinois' legal cannabis after that.
Yeah, no, so it's been going great. That, as you said, we've opened up our 8th location, and it's one that's really close to my heart. I know that you stated you lived in the Humboldt Park neighborhood, and I grew up around there. I lived in that area between there and Humboldt, Logan, and like Belmont, Cragen area.
Oh, sure.
In my early 20s.
Right on, dude. Yeah, I was between the flags off of California Division in Humboldt there.
Oh my God, of course. Yeah, no, I know. It's interesting to me. I'm sorry to get off topic here a bit, but
oh, go for it.
As we were just like building the store and doing the things that it takes in order to become operational, every time I was going into the neighborhood, it was like just taking a stroll down memory lane, like even the actual site that we are on is where my mother used to take me to do laundry with her. So
wow.
It was just like a real full circle thing. When I called her, she was just like, what? She was like, that is so funny. I'm like, isn't it? I'm like, now every time that I go to that store, that's why it's like really close to my heart, because as soon as I go into the store and I'm just in the area, I'm like, oh my God, my mom and I used to go here, and my dad used to take me here, and it just like all starts to rush back, and it was a really like cool full circle moment for me. And just thinking about, growing up and how the challenges in that area were, and how many people face challenges with cannabis, and now just to be there doing it legally and really being a service to the community, with the amount of people that we hire that are from the area. There was just like so much that it was like a really proud moment when we were able to cut the ribbon and get those doors open.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And the way you describe the neighborhood, it is like that. And it's so loyal too. I mean, people have lived there for decades. It's the same families, it feels like, up and down those blocks. And like you said, a lot of them have had bad run-ins, in terms of cannabis. It's caused problems for them in the past. So, yeah. Like you said, that loyalty for them, the commitment to the area, and now having a dispensary there, it is really full circle. It's cool that you can kind of return that loyalty, back to them in a place that is just, it's just full of it,
Definitely. So for us, we definitely are fortunate and have some success, and have people within our organization that have a lot of experience, and I think that is really where we're finding a lot of our success. We've been set up, to win. And right now, we have a various amounts of product. I know you asked kind of what's really turning the needle. It's still going to be like your tried and trues. We're still always, traditional like flower stores. That ranges like across all stores. It's interesting when you look at it from, really what's selling, because it's like a two-pronged thing. One is bulk flower, right? Like, so people are always looking for deals, like whether it's on ounces or half ounces or shake. That's really something that carries like the volume of the stores, right? Like that I would say is probably like the biggest pillar. But then as we're starting to navigate the upcoming, like the craft grows that are coming in, and there's that niche where people really want to see what's new, what's exciting, what's different, and we're starting to see that portion of the business starting to get its legs and starting to build up, which is interesting, right? Because that's like a really a really opposite end of the spectrum. You go in and you want to. Most people are looking to grab an ounce, and if you can get out the door for under 200 with the taxes and everything, I feel like people typically feel like they got a great deal. And
Right.
now we're coming into some of these craft growers where the focus is really on, the terpene profiles of it, the bud composition, and really just trying to hand trim it and just trying to bring another level of execution on the flower. So we're starting to see that, and that price is, usually like around $60 is what we're moving those days for. So that's kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum. So I think that's starting to get legs, but ultimately, bulk flower and it is really like the pillar of like what's generating volume for us.
I think that is probably the real lifeblood, as you were describing it for a lot of dispensaries. I think it is the bulk, and then it's the more specialty stuff, the premium sort of value tier, where it's I think a lot of us stoners, as you say, you're going to be looking to go in and you got to get through the month, so I want to get an ounce for the best price that I possibly can. But then there's also a lot of us, a lot of the same shoppers where it's like, all right, I have the stuff that's going to get me through the month, but now I'd like to go and try something new, try something unique that a small batch grower just harvested and made for themselves. I want to play around with some different terpenes from the bulk that I just bought. I want to kind of, change it up and everything. So that different price tier, that system that you were kind of talking about, the value tier, so that people can get what they want at a lower price. But then when they're in the mood, or they just kind of feel like exploring a little bit, or they want to support a small batch grower, like I said, maybe they'll splurge a little for a higher priced, but more premium product. So it's cool that you guys offer both of those.
Yeah, it's important for us to serve every customer. I really want to make sure that when you come into one of our locations, from experience to aesthetics to selection to pricing, we have you covered, and we have a great and robust loyalty program. So we have a lot of aspects that just kind of work on customer retention and want to show the customer how important it is for their business. Like, their business is ultimately, what we're striving to attain and retain, so having that variety and making sure that it's all inclusive on our menu is very important to us.
I'm wondering, do you guys, you mentioned that you do have that flower at the two different tiers. I don't know if you have these products now, or I'm just kind of curious if there's any plan to, but do you guys have edibles or concentrates or drinks or any of the other stuff kind of that's been making waves in that end?
Oh, definitely. So we carry a broad assortment of products. Again, like the flower is what you would consider, the most popular of it. But then we carry a lot of pre-rolls, and with pre-rolls you have them in various sizes and packs. And now what's becoming really popular in stores is like infused joints, and then they just infuse them in so many different ways. Whether it's some will do it with distillate, some will do it with sand, some will do it with keef.
Right.
Some will do it with crumble wax, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have those actual concentrates on their own. And we carry edibles from your traditional gummies and every kind of ratio that you can think of, to chocolate, to cereal bars, to cookies, to powders that you can put into liquids to enhance your beverage and give you the effect you're going for. And then you have your cartridges and your disposable vapes, and those are coming in various sizes, and from, rosin to distillate. And just every which way for that as well. And then beverages are like a fast growing brand, and a lot of people are starting to explore with beverages. And then for your more new beginner, kind of weary about getting into cannabis, I think the easiest way for most people to start is always with like a topical, and we carry those things as well. And we carry sublinguals and droppers. So yeah, we carry it all down.
Right on.
I want to make sure that. Yeah, exactly.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think, as you say, meeting people where they are is really important. People have different, wants, needs, and I love that, you brought up topicals. I think that's huge. That and gummies, they really seem to be the lowest barrier to entry for people who maybe don't have any experience with cannabis, and now that it's legal, they at some point try and, they want to see more about it. They want to experiment, and those two products, I really feel like, topical cream creams and then just something like a gummy or even a drink. You mentioned those are also getting popular. That stuff is huge for people who've never tried cannabis, maybe have no interest in smoking or for whatever reason. And I think having stuff that, is reachable for people at any stage, that's really cool that you guys are doing that. I'm curious too, do you guys have any, at Ivy Hall, do you have any in-house brands, or are you sort of partnering with any growers or people who are cultivating products aside from the big three? I always talk about on the show, we got Verano, we got Cresco, we got Green Thumb with Rise, and they all have their different collection of brands. I'm just kind of curious if Ivy Hall has any partnerships that they value that way, or if you guys kind of make any products in-house like that.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question, and it's definitely in the works right now. So we do have a flower brand that is going to drop shortly. We haven't gotten the exact date of release, but definitely more to come. But very excited to get that going, and we just haven't released too much detail around it yet. So you're the first person that knows outside of Ivy Hall that it's happening.
Hey, right on. A little breaking news
cool,
right here. I like it.
You're breaking news for sure. But so we're still kind of just formulating the market plan for our release, but really excited to get some house brand flower to go. It's going to be very premium, and we're partnering with a great brand, and really excited to get that going. So yeah, that'll come at some point in early March, and we're looking to see where that takes us. But we're excited to just have our own brand on our shelves, and it's really going to represent what Ivy Hall is all about, and be a premium product at a really great price.
Right on. Yeah, that does sound exciting, and I'm sure that there's a lot of people who are going to be looking forward to giving that a try to just keep supporting Ivy Hall in whichever way they can. On that note, in terms of supporting, as we've been saying, there's 8 locations. I know that you are obviously involved with the Logan Square location. Where can people find the other locations to figure out which one's closest to them? If you know offhand what other neighborhoods they're in, or if there's a website people can go to.
Yeah, so we have 8 locations, as you stated. You could definitely go over to ivyhall.shop. That'll take you to our website, and it'll put you right up to our menu. You can also go to ivyhalldispensaries.com. Either way, it'll get you over to our store locators. In the city, we have one in Bucktown, on Damon and St. Paul.
Gotcha.
And then we have some in the northern suburbs. We have Bolingbrook, Crystal Lake, Glendale Heights, Montgomery, Waukegan. And then we have one in Central Illinois in Peoria. That one was our 7th location to open. Yep, and then we have another store coming, hopefully this month. We're in the process with the state now, just finalizing our application and making sure that we set up our inspection with them. But we're anticipating that we will open our 9th location in February.
Wow,
and that'll be in Streamwood.
That's very exciting. It seems like you guys really are, cooking with gas right now at Ivy Hall. And I wanted to ask about that. You obviously with 8 locations, with a 9th, coming later this month in February, you guys have a lot of experience working with the state and the regulations, the getting the paperwork in on time, and all of what it takes to get, to remain compliant with the state and get your operations up and running. What has your experience been like working with the state of Illinois and its legal cannabis? How have you found this process to be, just in terms of getting your stuff and getting onto the market and everything?
Yeah, so I would say, I think that my approach with the state has always been to leverage them as a partner, right? So every time that we go through and we're making decisions, for the safety of our customers, for the safety of our employees, and if something's not really black and white, really take the state on as a partner. And I think when you do that and you really show them your commitment to compliance and the fact that, you want to be a great operator. And I take a lot of pride in our stores being, great operators. So that's the way I've always seen it with them. I have many of their personal numbers from the IDSPR and ISP. And, I think that the more you communicate with them and the more open you are with them, the better your relationship is. So, for us in general, it's been a really great relationship. We haven't had any issues at all. And I think that it just really comes down to the fact that, we always take them on as a partner. We prefer to over communicate than not communicate enough. And I think that really takes our relationship to another level with them. And there's a lot of mutual respect there as well.
That's good. Yeah, that sounds good. I think that's a great mantra that you've got there, like a great attitude about it. And I'm sure the state appreciates that as well. A couple more questions, Omar. Do you guys have any, we mentioned that Illinois it's all the states right now until the DEA, the FDA, until we get any kind of news about rescheduling and changing the federal prohibition here. Each state, I always say on the show, is effectively its own island in terms of cannabis laws. There's no interstate commerce. Everybody does it a different way. Are there any plans for Ivy Hall to do anything outside of the state of Illinois, even down the road? Obviously, you guys have had great success here in the land of Lincoln, but I'm just wondering, any plans to expand beyond the borders?
So we're currently just making sure that the operation within Illinois gets to its 10th store and that we're capped there. But we're excited for the possibility. Right now, we don't have anything concrete on the horizon, but we are open to possibilities. We really feel like if there is a possibility and it makes sense for us, definitely something that we're going to consider. We're really proud of the brand we've built, the reputation that we're getting, and if we could expand that into a state that we see an opportunity and a need to fill, we'll definitely be interested in doing so.
Right on. That's fantastic. I know that my listeners outside of Illinois will be very happy to hear that. And in the meantime, if you're not in Illinois, come on over and check out whichever Ivy Hall you can get over to, because as Omar stated, they got 8 dispensaries up right now. A 9th is coming, and it sounds like they have a lot of great products for you to go and check out. One more thing I wanted to ask you, Omar. I noticed in one of the media releases that Ivy Hall is Black and veteran owned. I was talking with another business recently, and they do something where they run discounts for veterans every day. I'm happy to cut this out if you'd like, but I'm just curious, do you guys run any discounts for veterans or any kind of planned discounts or specials like that people can kind of, mark their calendars for?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Don. Great question. So for veterans, we have a 20% discount that's standing. And then we also have some other discounts that are standing. So for industry, we give people 20% off, medical card holders 15% off, first responders, teachers, seniors, SSDI, all 15% off. And then we have some specific days where we do some really cool stuff, like Senior Sundays, we give 20% off to seniors all day. If you're a Med card holder, we have Med card Mondays, you get 25% off. And then if you're part of our membership for Tuesdays, we have Thank You Tuesdays, and we give anybody that's in our Charter Club, which is our loyalty program, extra percentages on top of our already great deals. So a lot to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. That's awesome. I love honestly, the loyalty program thing. I haven't seen a lot of dispensaries doing that. I figured it was something that would come, but that's something I think that it's cool that you guys are already doing that. And I'm sure that, people will get some good stuff out of joining that too.
Yeah, awesome. And then Sunday through Thursday, we do early bird and the last cost of the first hour and the last hour. We also get 10% off of our promotions as well. So if you're in the know, you know that's a great time to come by, and we're always ready and excited to have customers come in and take advantage of those deals, and people do. So it's really awesome.
Right on. So head to ivyhall.shop, listener, and you can figure out where your nearest store is and when those what discounts you can perhaps apply for. But either way, definitely worth getting out to an Ivy Hall and checking one of those out. I'll be doing that myself very soon. I can't wait to try some of these brands that we were just talking about. Omar Delgado, Vice President of the Logan Square Ivy Hall, thank you so much for jumping on today and kind of sharing a little bit of your story with us.
Yeah, Don, my pleasure. This was so much fun. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. I hope when you get a chance to come to Ivy Hall, we're the place that you shop, and for your listeners as well, we really value our customers, and we want to represent that through experience and, through our menu offerings, and, hopefully we learn their names and they come back to us, and, we make it a meaningful relationship moving forward. So thanks again.
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for what you're doing. Keep up the great work. We'll talk again.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
And there you have it, listener. I want to thank one more time my guest, Omar Delgado of Ivy Hall. I am really looking forward to getting over to one of their many locations. I'd love to hit up that Logan Square Bucktown one myself, just because I haven't been to that area of town in a while. But I love their philosophy there. I like what they're doing in terms of the discounts. And as I said at the top of the interview, it is an ownership group that I think we can all get behind and we'd all like to see more of. As far as I'm concerned, the quality of the products and the end user's experience, us the consumers, that is top of mind. That's the most important thing. Second most important thing is making sure that communities that were disproportionately harmed by the war on drugs are benefiting disproportionately from this new legal cannabis industry. I get it. In a free market, the market should suss out the best products and those ideally would rise to the top and all of that. But the more social equity businesses that are on Illinois streets and dispensaries that are up and running so that all of us can support social equity owners, the better our cannabis market is going to be. So I love what Ivy Hall's doing, and I'm certainly going to get over there as soon as I can. I encourage you to do the same. I've got two other headlines to share with you this week, listener. I thought both of these topics would be of interest to you. The first one is from normal.org. If you haven't heard my interview with Paul Armentano of Normal, highly encourage you to go back and listen to it. It's just chock full of insights from Paul, who's been in this space for the last 30 years. But Normal put out an article here with the headline reading, "Study THC blood levels not correlated with changing in driving performance." Now, I wanted to bring this up because, as I mentioned earlier, states like Illinois are looking into how they are policing driving while under the influence of cannabis. And they are right now trying to settle on, and as I mentioned earlier, there's some exciting developments in terms of being able to read accurately how under the influence you are right now of THC that you may have ingested within the last 30 minutes or so. And that's a good thing. As I've said, I think accurate readings of how people are being affected, that's just going to be better for us and society to normalize cannabis going forward. In order for them to sort of open the doors and let us use this in a capacity as normal as alcohol, they're going to need to be able to test for it immediately and accurately. Ideally, the way that we have blood alcohol concentration tests now. Having a numerical system of value that can, at a snapshot, take a reading from you and immediately tell somebody how inebriated you are, that is a crucial step in order to making this a normal part of our society. However, related to this topic, Normal highlights this study out of Toronto, Canada. This was published January 25th at normal.org. I won't read the whole thing, but I'll give you some highlights. The article starts, "The presence of THC in blood is not predictive of detriments in psychomotor performance, according to driving simulator data published in the journal JAMA Network Open, JAMA. Researchers affiliated with the University of Toronto assessed subjects' simulated driving performance at baseline and then again 30 and 180 minutes after smoking cannabis. Participants were between the ages of 65 and 79 years old and smoked cannabis with a mean THC potency, so the average of 19%, as much as they wanted prior to driving. The article goes on, subjects exhibited small changes in SDLP, which in parentheses they specify is weaving, 30 minutes after cannabis inhalation. Investigators describe these changes as less pronounced than those associated with drivers with a BAC below 0.05%. That 30 minutes after smoking as much cannabis they wanted, these 65 to 79-year-olds were weaving less than drivers who had a BAC below 0.05%, meaning that in that control group, the variations on their psychomotor controls, holding onto the wheel and operating the vehicle, their weaving was less pronounced than people who were a little buzzed but still within the legal limit for alcohol consumption. The article goes on, consistent with the results of prior studies, participants decreased their speed after smoking and were more likely to self-assess their performance as impaired. cannabis use did not impact participants' reaction times. And then the last thing I'll read is that subjects' simulated driving performance returned to baseline within 3 hours. So there's a little more information in this article here. I will share it, as I always do, in the show description notes if you want to read it for yourself, which I encourage. Just scroll down and click on that link, and it'll take you to this normal.org article here. But on the same line that I was talking about earlier, the ability to assess individuals' impairment levels is crucial to being able to normalize this stuff. And now we've got this study showing that not in like young, healthy, vibrant individuals, the sort of thinking of like, all right, you're in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s. These are people in retirement age, right? 65 to 80 years old. And those people, as indicated by the study, were less impaired after inhaling cannabis than people, or at least they were weaving less when driving than people who had a blood alcohol level of 0.05%, which again is within the legal limit. So suffice it to say, people could be driving on the road still within the legal limit of 0.08. If they're at 0.05 or 0.06, based on this study, they could be weaving their vehicles, and their psychomotor control over the vehicles would be more impaired than these elderly study participants who had smoked as much cannabis as they wanted to before driving. That is my takeaway from the study, and I think that's a big one. So anyway, definitely go on to read the rest of that one. It's worth your time. And then one final article that I thought would be exciting to all of us. Germany to legalize marijuana by April, top official says. I'm recording this episode February 15th, which puts us about a month and a half away from Germany legalizing cannabis. This is very exciting. This is from mjbizdaily.com. I will share this article as well. The posted author is just the staff of the paper, posted January 22nd and updated on the 1st of this month. Germany's health minister believes cannabis legalization will become a reality in the country this spring. Health Minister Karl Lauterbach has set a target for the Bundestag, the national parliament, to approve the nation's long-awaited cannabis law in February. Germany would then, in April, become the first country to legalize cannabis in Europe, according to German news reports. The article quotes Lauterbach saying, "I am continuing to assume that the Cannabis Act will be passed by the Bundestag in the week between February 19th and 23rd and will go into force from April 1st." End quote. Germany's current ruling coalition came into power, promising legalization, but has yet to pass a law. A parliamentary vote, which was expected to occur late last year, was delayed in December. The latest plan that they'll be voting on calls for decriminalization of cannabis, home cultivation and possession starting April 1st of this year, and cultivation clubs that would launch potentially in July. The article does note, however, some of Germany's 16 federal states oppose legalization. The southern state of Bavaria, which is governed by the conservative Christian Social Union, wants the law blocked, even though the latest version of the measure is a major step back from the original plan of full legalization. That's pretty much the entirety of this article. I will also share it in the description notes. Read it for yourself. Just scroll down and click that link, and you can kind of see what I was talking about there. But we have another country, and the first in Europe, according to their reports, who will legalize cannabis in just a few short weeks. Very, very exciting stuff. I love seeing more states join this party. I love seeing more countries join this party. And to all my friends in Germany, hang tight. The green rush, as I've been calling it here, is about to crash over your country as well. And I hope you get to enjoy it as much as I am here. I have also really been enjoying indulging in coffee again. I love getting my morning caffeine kick back after that dry January, a long 31 days without it. And if you're looking to try some delicious coffee to start your day and support a company started by veterans sworn to protect America, you need to try Split Rock coffee. They have lots of great options like their breakfast blend, 100% Colombian light roast coffee. They have medium and dark roast as well, along with a cold brew coffee special. Winter will be over sometime soon, and with those warm temps, cold brew is excellent to have. They also have whole bean options, as well as ground coffee and package deals. Or if you're looking more toward the end of your day rather than the beginning of it, and you want to turn the party up maybe before or after dinner, cocktails are always a great way to do that. But no need to head out to a bar or restaurant to get that quality cocktail that you're craving. You can get Camp Craft cocktails sent right to your home. Jars with all the ingredients you need, along with recipe cards and instructions on how to craft your own delicious cocktails. All of that can come to you from Camp Craft. They've got lots of great options like fruitcake, sweater weather, peppermint black martini, a pumpkin smash, and you can shop your cocktails by spirit if you're a vodka drinker, gin, whiskey, or tequila like myself, rum, along with zero-proof spirits. If you're sober curious or if you're looking to do a little bit of a dry month like I did, Camp Craft Cocktails has you covered, and you can get both Split Rock Coffee and Camp Craft Cocktails at the Vouch store by scrolling down to the description notes and clicking on that Vouch store link. It'll take you right to my show page, and you can support some businesses that are worth it and try some delicious products that I think you'll like. And if you're listening to this podcast, I believe that you like podcasts, and maybe you're looking for some others to listen to. Well, for your consideration, I want to suggest Fire-Breathing Kittens. That's right, that's the name. It's an actual play one-shot podcast that plays various tabletop role-playing games with a season-long plot. Because there's a beginning and an end to each week's story, you can start at any episode. Every week has a different combination of 4 from the same rotating cast group of people. I like that. I love a good tabletop game, and I think some excellent conversations can come during a round of games. So join Fire-Breathing Kittens as they solve detective mysteries, attempt comedic banter, and enjoy friendship wherever you get your podcasts. And that's going to wrap up this podcast from me this week, listener. I want to thank one more time my guest, Omar Delgado of Ivy Hall. Get out to one of those if you can, if you live in Illinois or if you're visiting sometime soon. Remember to leave a rating or review for the podcast, share it with your friends, become a subscriber by scrolling down and hitting that support the show link in the description notes, and follow the show at C-Man Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, or the Cannabis Man Podcast on Facebook. Any feedback, suggestions, or questions you might have, email host@cannabismanpodcast.com. And I'll be back again next week with another interview, some news stories for you, and perspective all about cannabis on the Cannabis Man Podcast. Bye-bye. Cannabis Man is 100% originally crafted by myself, Don Kleppen. Original theme music written and composed by Yusu Kim, aka Good Son.